This next project is called the Clipping Mask Text Art Project, which, as you guys can see, is going to involve coming up with a word and using some of your photographs. So by now you should have assembled some photography of your own and come up with some word ideas that kind of sum up all of the photos that you have. So as you can see, most of my photos are from traveling, so I've chosen to use the word explore because it's a little bit more interesting than just travel. You want your words to be as unique as possible. So hopefully you've already assembled some photos that you really like, and actually you've come up with a word that works for those photos. You can see this on our Google Classroom. It was under the journal assignment that says word art planning. And I got my photos just by looking back on my Instagram and finding some of my favorite photos that I've taken throughout time. But it's going to depend for you on where your photos come from. If they're coming from your phone, or if you're finding them from your social media, that's fine. Just make sure they are all on your laptop as JPEGs so that you're good to go. So as you guys can see, for this project, I have all of my photos. They are actually saved as PNG files, which is also fine. When you take a screenshot, that's what it will default to. And all of my photos are saved in the same location so that I can easily find them for this project. So now that I have all of my photos saved onto my computer and I have my word in my head, let's get started using Illustrator. So to start out your project, you're going to go to Create New or to File New. As always, type in your last name and then the project. Okay. For this, we're definitely going to need this to be landscape for our orientation. And please make sure that points is changed to inches as always. For the width though, depending on the size of your word, you're going to want to go much longer than 11 inches. We're going to have what's called a panorama size artboard. So if you have about a 5-word or 5-letter word, maybe you want to try just 15 inches. But to get started, I like to use a healthy 20 inches. And then you're going to click Create. So let me move all my palettes over here. And I'll zoom out. And as you can see, my artboard is significantly longer than usual. It's great to start out long so that you have more space later. So to kick this off, we're going to want to rename layer 1 your background. And then immediately add a new layer. Now, for each letter of the word that you've chosen, you're going to need a layer for each letter. So my word is explore. So layer 2, I'm going to rename E. I'm going to add another layer, name it X. Add a new layer, name it P. Add a new layer, L. Add a new layer, O. Add a new layer, R. And one more time and name it E. So as I look up my layers, it will spell my word going upwards, explore. Again, your word is probably not explore, so please make sure that your layers are labeled for whatever the letters are that make up your chosen word. Then I'm going to come down to my first letter, and I need to start by adding a text box. So on the toolbar, I'm going to use the type tool. It's the capital letter T. And I'm going to make my little text toolbox. It will default to this Latin script that says lorem ipsum dolor. Don't worry about that. Just press backspace or delete on your keyboard and type your letter. I recommend using caps for this project, but it's ultimately going to be up to you. Next, we need to fix this letter, I should say, because this is way too small. I'm not going to be able to put a photograph inside this. So on your properties palette, you will notice that when your type box is selected, your properties will change at the bottom to have some font options for you. We want to start by clicking on the point size where it says 12 point and making it much bigger. The biggest it will allow you to make it by default is 72 points, but you can actually highlight that 72 and type in whatever size you want. So I'm going to go up to 100. Still too small. So I'm going to try 200. That's better. I think I can go bigger. So I'll try 300. That looks just right. We want nice, large letters. We also want our letters to be thick, because the thicker the letter is going to be for this project, the better we're going to be able to see the photograph that we're going to place inside the letter. You are free to change your font. Some will be thicker than others, and some may be skinnier than others. Anything that looks like script or is really thin is probably not going to be an ideal option for this project. So I recommend finding something nice and thick so that you'll be able to see as much of the photo as possible inside your clipping mask for each letter. Now, I'm going to replicate the same thing for all of my letters. The easiest way to do this is to copy each letter that you make by selecting it, and then on your keyboard, holding down Control and typing C. Move to your next layer and paste it by holding down Control and hitting V on your keyboard. You'll see that I have another letter E here. This one's highlighted in green because it's on a new layer. If I double click on my text box, I can highlight this E and replace it with a big X. Now you can't see it because this little red icon here means that my text box isn't big enough. So I'm just going to make it a little bit wider until my X appears. And now I'm going to repeat this process of copying and pasting so that I have a text box with just one letter on each of my layers. Copy, go to letter P, paste, line it up, type my letter. You'll notice that Illustrator is putting everything in a nice straight line for me so that I don't have to think about my straight line. This will look better, however, if your lines are more straight than crooked. Oh, good, I have some extra space. So last time I'm going to copy it, go to my last layer, paste, and replace it with the letter E. Get it all lined up. Now before you move on, I recommend getting your letters all lined up and spaced out exactly the way that you want them to be. If you feel like they're too high, you can select them all by drawing an invisible box around all of them, and you can move them all at the same time using your arrow keys, even though they're on different layers. Now, if your artboard is a little bit too long, like mine is, you have the option of either changing your artboard size or simply moving your letters to center them. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to move my letters in so I have more space on the side here. But I'm also going to make my artboard a little bit smaller so that I can trim off this unnecessary space on the end. To do that, I'm going to have to use my artboard tool on my toolbar. The artboard tool is toward the bottom, and it looks like a cross with a little post-it note embedded in it. Double click on that tool. and it'll open your artboard options. From here, I can adjust my width. So instead of it being 19 inches or 20 inches, I'm going to make it 19. And I don't need so much height. So instead of 8.5, I think I'll make it 6. As you can see, it's changed my artboard size. I could probably come in a little bit more. So I'll just double click on it again and change that 19 to 18. That's more like it. And now I can select all of my letters one more time and scoot them over so that they fit. Perfect. Now comes the part where we want to place the clipping mask inside each of our letters. So we're going to do that by placing each of the photos that you've selected on your artboard and then making a clipping mask with the photo and the letter. The clipping mask means that it's going to put the photo inside each letter. Clipping masks are a way of uniquely cropping your artwork. So instead of just cropping something to make another smaller rectangle, I'm going to crop it to be a unique shape. In this case, the letter E, X, P, L, O, R, E, or whatever your word is spelling. Making clipping masks is really simple. The hardest part is just deciding what you want to put where. So to start, I'm going to select my letter E at the bottom. Then I'm going to come up to File and Place, and I'm going to select my first photo. You can see that I have my photo attached here. And what's really important here is that I want to make my photo slightly bigger than the letter E, but not so big that it's taking up the entire artboard. So I'm going to click and drag while I place it so that I'm just a little bit bigger than my E on at least the top and bottom. And then I want to position my photo so that I'm as on top of the E as possible. Next, I need to select both the letter E and my photo. I'm going to start by right-clicking on the photograph that I just placed, going down to Arrange, and then opting to send it to back. That will place the photo behind the letter E, even though they are still on the same layer. Now I need to select both. I'm going to hold down Shift. I already have my photo selected, so I'm just going to click on the letter E. This is your last chance to rearrange your photo in case you see a part of it that you really want to be inside your letter. So I might just scoot my photo over just a tad bit more. Select both. Right-click on your letter and select Make Clipping Mask. As you can see, the only parts of the photo that are still left are the parts that fit inside that letter E. Next, I'm going to come up to my X layer. As you work on your layers, it's a good idea to lock the layers that you've completed so that you can't accidentally mess them up. For my X, I'm going to do the same thing. Come to File, Place, and select my photo. Then I'm going to click and drag to make it slightly bigger than the X. Right-click on it, go to Arrange, send it to back. Fix my photo so that it is arranged just where I want it. Hold down Shift to select both. Right-click, Make Clipping Mask. And I'm going to repeat this for all of my letters. Now that I have finished all of my letters, the very last thing that I need to do is go to my background layer, select my rectangle tool. and place a rectangle that covers the entire artboard. You can choose a color to fill this rectangle of your choosing. Anything but white is fine. I recommend using your color picker to click around and pick the option that you think is best. You want something that's going to make all of your photos pop. If some of your photos are more colorful than other photos, this might be a little challenging. For some of you, a light gray or a cream might be the best choice. Others might want something more neutral like a dark gray. I might even have to go even darker because I have some dark tones over here too. There we go. You want ultimately each letter to pop. When you're done, you're going to go to File, Save As, and save your work as an AI file. Then you'll click OK. And finally, you'll save a final copy of your work as a PDF. Go to File, Save As, and select Adobe PDF. This will be the copy that you turn in. When you turn in your project, make sure you also turn in the individual photos that you put inside each of your letters separately. You can turn in the PNGs or JPEGs, however you would like. You can upload them or place them all in a Google Doc or Google Slide.